I am Carolyn Gonzalez from UNM Live, and with me today is Jennifer Nez Denetdale, a professor in American Studies at the University of New Mexico.
I'm a citizen of the Navajo Nation. My home community is Tohatchee, New Mexico. My mother is descended from the Navajo leader Manuelito and his wife Juanita, and he is known for his avocation of education for Navajo children. Some of the stories, particularly the Reclaiming Dene history, I went to my grandparents to ask them questions specifically about Manuelito and Juanita. And because we are still a matrilineal society, I thought I looked at the stories from the mothers and the grandmothers. That's who I depended on to help me think about how we think about the past. And so this weekend I went to a reunion of one of my grandfathers, Mike Allison, who had passed away several years ago. He was 104 when he died.
Wow.
And him and his wife Anna Allison had been married for 75 years. And so he told me stories of primarily my grandmother, my great-great-great-grandmother, Juanita. And so when we went to this reunion last week, they asked me to speak because we were talking about a principal concept of k'eh. Is a system of relationships by which we communicate. The host of the reunion wanted the younger generation to know how we're related to each other. And so they asked me to speak about, what k'eh meant to me. And I talked about how my grandfather, Mike, had shared his stories of Manuelito and Juanita. And I said one of the things that I told them, that one of the things I take away from these stories of learning about our great-great-great-grandparents who were leaders of the resistance to Mexican and then American invasion of Navajo land, that what we do with our education, with formal education today and our teachings at home, is not just for our own individual purposes. I told all the young people, I said, all of us in this place have warrior's blood running through our veins, and that our ancestors cared deeply about the land, and that we should keep land for the coming generations, and that we should use our education to defend and protect the sovereignty of the Navajo Nation. So that's part of what my teachings for Native young people. But you also have a lot of mostly non-Native students also, and people are interested. And I always say that we also need our alliances. We also need people to understand what's important about Native nations. In May, I went to the site of the former Carlisle Indian School. Manuelito had sent two of his sons to Carlisle in the 1880s. And this was the first group of Navajo students who went to Carlisle. And he had sent them as a message to his people to show that education was important for Navajo students for the future. And he didn't do this with the intention that they should become white people, but that they should use educations as a means to ensure the sovereignty of the Navajo Nation. And it can be very emotional, very tearful to look at these photographs and to think about the past, to think about their journey across, the Midwest, and really not having an idea of where you're going to be or how they're going to treat you. Within a year, one of the young men died there. There was diseases rampant there. And then, so one son died there, and then within a year, he died there, and then the other one was sick, and he was sent home at the request of his father, and he died soon after returning home. Upon the death of his second son, Manuelito asked that all of the Navajo children be sent home. And then another group of Navajo students went to Carlisle in the early 1900s.
Now, you weren't part of the Indian school system then, but were your parents?
My parents are both products of the boarding school. They went to several boarding schools, but they met at the Stewart Indian School in Carson City, Nevada.
You said you were a single parent. Do you have one child then?
I have two sons and one daughter, and I have 3 grandsons. And they are the apple of my eye. They are my heart.
And do they all speak Navajo?
No, they don't. I'm sorry to say.
Your children don't?
No, they don't speak Navajo.
Because you were traveling so much and going to school that they weren't around enough Navajo people consistently to acquire the language?
It's part of the boarding school, the consequences of boarding school. My parents are predominantly Navajo speakers. As we were growing up, me and my sisters and brother as children, they made the decision not to teach us Navajo because of their own experiences at the boarding school. You know, it was traumatic, and it was violent, and they just thought that we would get along better if we spoke English. I understand Navajo like a fluent speaker. As a result of my interviews with my grandparents, my language use is better. So I can carry on a conversation, but I need more work. I have been working with 2 of my grandsons on teaching them Navajo. My grandson's little dog is a Chihuahua mix. His name is Hashke'ekode, which means warrior with no tail.